The July 2024 release from Wow Embossing is now available, and it is chock full of the most sparkly, glittery, amazing new texture-looking embossing powders. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video I'll be sharing a bunch of the new release. I'll be sharing some ways to use it, and this video is part of the Wow Embossing video hop. So be sure to watch all the way till the end because I'm going to share a secret word that you need to comment in order to be entered to win amazing giveaway. They're giving away the entire release in these goodie bags that are worth $70. So first, let's just take a look at some of what is included in this latest release. First, we have the Fruit Puffs Quad, which is 4 colors of larger than traditional embossing powder, so you're definitely going to want to heat from the bottom. These are the ice crystals. It's a trio. There's white, pink, and blue ice crystals, and you can see those big chunks of crystals inside. This is called $1 Million, and it's a mixed media duo with gold and then sparkly chunks. We have the polished gold regular, fine, silver regular, and fine. And then this is the Harlequin mixed media. These again are large chunks that you're going to want to mix in to another smaller powder. This is white pastiche. It has smaller and large chunks inside. These are the fab foils, and while I didn't get a chance to show them in this video, I promise that I will in a future video along with some of the powders and mixed media items that I didn't feature today. Now I'm going to show a couple of ways to use these special embossing powders to create amazing effects and textures on cards. So I'll start with the Wow Embossing Pad, and it's a clear, ultra slow drying pad, which means that it gives you time to stick some of the powders to it before you heat set it, and that will hold it in place. Now, these large powders like the puffs, they definitely are not going to completely opaquely cover every inch of the cardstock. So they're just too big and too thick to completely stick down to that clear embossing ink. You can add a little bit more if you feel like you just missed a couple of spots, but what I would do is not tap off the way that I did so much, and you'll get a thicker coverage. But the thing is, these do puff up when you heat set them. So even though there are just little tiny white spots in between, they will kind of converge together because it is such a thicker medium. Now, if your pad gets dry, this is a great way to refill it. They have this brush, it's like a mixed media brush, but you can also use it to refill your ink pad. And I love that because you get a much more consistent coverage that way. Okay, here is the Banana Puff. You can see this one I did get a little bit more of an opaque look to it. I think I learned a little bit of skills to use with this. So like I was shaking it from side to side instead of just dumping it off, kind of gave it a little bit extra traction to stick. And then again, always heat set these from the bottom, because if you try to go from the top, you're just going to blow everything right off your cardstock. So here's the last color that I'm using in this card. It's the Blueberry Puff, and this one, again, I thought maybe it wasn't going to give me great coverage, but once you heat set it, because they are a little thicker, some of those white spots do get covered up, and then it does give you that mixed media look. But check that out. It's a really pretty color. It does puff up, and it does give you lots of texture, which is super cool for an embossing powder to be able to do that. So I have these dies from Simon Hurley for Ranger from his Birthday Bash collection, and I'll link to those down in the YouTube description box below the video as well, so that you can find everything that I used in today's video. I also have this 3D embossing folder, and it has those puffy balloons as a background. So I've embossed it, and now I'll cover it with some embossing ink, and I'm just swiping it across the top. Now remember, some of the image is going to be higher and then other parts of the image. And that's going to create a really cool look when you cover it with silver embossing powder from Wow. So I start with just the plain silver polish powder, and check that out. It's super cool. But let's not stop there. Let's add some of the silver glass. This is, again, more of a crystal. So you're mixing it with an embossing powder, because when the embossing powder melts, it's going to hold on to these crystals and it won't let them fall off. So while the crystals themselves are a little big and heavy to stick onto the clear embossing ink, it may if you get it really wet, but this way, if you put it on top of an embossing powder and then heat set from the back, that embossing powder is gonna melt and grab onto those crystals. Check it out. This is like magic. This is so amazing. First of all, this silver polish just looks incredible when it's embossed. Like, look at that. It looks like a silver piece of cardstock. It is really phenomenal. And then you have those crystals in the balloons. This is a sentiment hot foil plate from Simon Hurley for Spellbinders that I'm using for all the cards in today's video. So I just wanted to show you that all of the sentiments come on one hot foil plate. So you hot foil them all at once. When you pull it out of your machine, you peel and reveal to show that they are all foiled beautifully, because it's all done on one plate and they're not sliding around. Then the beauty is there is one die and it cuts each sentiment out individually. Love that. So I've cut a whole bunch of sentiments out so that I have choices for each of the cards that I create today. So I'm cutting down the panel to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I'm placing plenty of tape runner on the back. And the reason I'm going a little overboard with the tape runner is so that I can flatten out that panel, because I really had to heat set the whole thing. So you get a little bit of warping there. So what you can do is use a ton of tape runner and then place it down onto a good strong piece of cardstock, and you should get a nice straight card. I did cut out white of the shadow for these balloons because I felt it like it was getting lost with the two colors of the puffs. But now the puffs look phenomenal because they are on the balloon color and shape, and then you have that fun little shadow in the background. There are also strings in that die set, so I just cut them out of some silver glitter cardstock, and I'll adhere the balloons down to the top of the strings with just a little bit of liquid adhesive and just hold them in place until you can just set them to the side and fully dry that way. Once I have all my balloons with strings, I'll start by applying one to the card in the center top with liquid adhesive only. The other two have small foam squares on the sides so that they can be above that blue balloon. And then I'll pop up the sentiment with some black foam squares since it's a dark sentiment. And then I'll trim those strings just so that they hit at the bottom of the card, and just look at all that shine and texture so easily created with just these new amazing powders and sparkles. This is the plaster embossing folder from Simon Hurley for Spellbinders, and I'm doing the same thing where I'm adding some embossing ink from the Wow pad right on top and just swiping against the grain of this embossed image. So now I'll use the white pastiche, which is a really cool mix of kind of clear and white and little glitters, and then big crystals, big clear crystals. So I'm pouring some of those big clear crystals right on top because most of them did not stick to the embossing ink. And then I will heat set from the back again, and it really adds so much to that already gorgeous embossed image to have all of that depth and shine that that white pastiche adds. Next, I'll add embossing ink to a plain piece of white cardstock and add the pink ice from that embossing trio on top. Now you can see some of those sparkles or little chips that look like glass did stick to the embossing ink, but I wanted more. So I picked up some of those extra pieces and put them right on top, and then set this aside. I'm going to heat set everything all at once. Again, some of them did stick, but I wanted a little bit more. So I just add a little bit more, and then these will stick once we heat set from the back, because the powder that's in this mix will melt and it will grab onto those little sparkly bits and hold them in place. Again, some stuck. I wanted more. I'll add more and just carefully set it aside and carefully pick it up when I'm ready to heat emboss it, because they will slide off until the embossing powder is melted. Again, heat set from the back, because if you start at the top, you're going to blow all of those crystals right off, and it will be so sad because they will be wasted. So again, heat set both the blue ice and the white ice from the back as well, and you can see how it's grabbing onto those crystals and they don't fall off anymore. So I'll use these to cut out my balloons for a totally different look, a more pastel look. Again, I have strings, this time cut out of white cardstock, the shadows cut out of white cardstock, and each of those balloons once again. I'll cut down that plaster background with the white pastiche to 4 by 5 1/4 and mat it on some of that silver glitter that I used for the last balloon strings. Next, I'll take this and turn it to a horizontal card so I can fit all 3 balloons next to each other and add a happy birthday sentiment. Just check out all that texture. It is absolutely amazing. Next up, I'm using the Flourish 3D embossing folder. It's also from the Simon Hurley for Ranger Birthday Bash collection. And here is all of the amazing texture that you create just by embossing it. But then let's add some of that embossing clear, ultra slow drying ink. And this time I'm just sprinkling some the polished gold fine embossing powder, and then I'll just sprinkle some of the Vegas gold on top. Now you can see how much thicker that Vegas gold is than the polished gold underneath it. So this actually melts. The Vegas gold actually does melt, but you still want to heat it from the back because those little chunks are so large, they will fly off, but they don't need to be held with that embossing powder. And check it out. I absolutely love this. It looks like liquid gold and then little splatters from the tiny dots of that Vegas gold that I sprinkled on top. So I'll just mat this on a pink piece of paper and then add a congratulations sentiment at the bottom. And it just is amazing to me how easy these powders are to work with and how the texture and color that you can get from them in just a quick heat set. Now about that video hopping giveaway, be sure to leave the word sparkly in your comment along with what is your favorite item from this new release, and then you'll be entered to win the amazing giveaways. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Whew. Just stepping next to the window, I could feel the heat like radiating in. Yay. That's items. Use these special